All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Earn Your
Yeah.
Leisure. We got a special episode, something that we haven't really talked too much about.
It's true.
I think we touched on it at some point in the past, but I know not recently we haven't spoken about it. Like in the last couple of years, we haven't had a conversation about it.
Definitely haven't, and not in depth. Like I feel like we're gonna get into today. It's one of these topics that I feel like we hear about it when we in high school, but we don't really talk about it too much after that. And so I'm excited.
Yeah, for sure. Stormi Banks from the Pink Print firm
Yes.
teaches people how to get grant funding. $19 million you secured?
19 million.
Okay. So
That's
looking forward to this
Nothing to
conversation.
sneeze at.
It's not a light conversation.
This is a heavy one.
Sure.
I like that.
But first and foremost, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate y'all in this
Absolutely.
nice facility today.
For sure. You came back up top. You know you're in Georgia, but you're from New York originally.
Yeah, from Brooklyn.
Okay, what part?
Bed-Stuy.
Best
Fulton Avenue.
do or die.
Fulton. Okay. Real dead style. I know what we're dealing with now.
There you go.
So we in Yonkers right now. This is upstate to you or no?
Definitely upstate.
We was doing so good.
I couldn't even put the address in Uber. I was like, where they got us going?
Nah. We was doing so good.
That's crazy.
I was like, Matt, where we at?
I will say this: Brooklyn is allowed to say that this is upstate because it is an hour from y'all.
Yeah, I agree.
That's crazy.
Anything an hour plus is upstate.
You know it's right outside of New York City, right?
That's what he said.
We right here.
He's like 15 minutes. I'm like, 15 minutes where?
Bronx.
Okay.
Bronx. Not from here. 5 minutes to the
Oh
Bronx.
yeah, Bronx.
I mean, we're closer to the George Washington than Brooklyn is.
But I don't even go to the Bronx, so.
Oh man, yeah. That sounds like Brooklyn to me.
Yeah. Good old Brooklyn. Okay, so first, can you tell us like how you got into this space?
I got into grants really organic. It's not a crazy story, right? I was a business owner. I didn't have credit.
What kind of business?
I had a salon. Yep, a mobile hair salon in New York. So I didn't have good credit and I didn't have a lot of cash flow. And I was like, okay, but I still need money. And I was vending at this event and this lady, she was a product distributor and she was like, oh, well, our company has a corporate grant out right now. Or Bay has a grant for hairstylists. And I was like, okay, how do I apply? She sent me the link. I applied. I ain't win that one, but then I knew about grants, right? And so then I was like, okay, well, if this was a grant opportunity, I'm going to try to find some other ones. After 10 applications of getting denied, I finally won. My first grant was a $50,000 grant. After that, I'm hooked. So that's how I initially got into it.
That brings into a lot of questions. Like I said, the last time we talked about grants, we were talking to young adults about getting grants because they didn't have to pay that back. But the even applying for it is what is that process like? What was it like for you after getting rejected 9 times? What were some of the things that you learned each time to finally get the successful one?
Yeah, and that's really the whole formula, right? Is because what people do is you're not going to win every grant you go for. Right now, typically people are winning like 10% of the grants that they're going for. But the formula is like actually figuring out, okay, get the feedback from the funders. You're like, okay, what did I do that made you say no, right? What can I do better in the future? Getting that creates like basically a proposal that is pretty much ironclad. Like, you know exactly what messaging works for what funders that you're going for. And so when you're going for the application process, people will say, oh, Stormi, I tried to ask them for feedback, but they didn't get back to me. They're like, oh, we had an overwhelming amount of people apply. We're not giving individual feedback. I found this site called Unfunded, right? It's unfunded.com. This is the site where you can become basically a judge on different grant applications. Grantors will be like, we need more volunteers to become a judge to help us go through. When you're a judge, you're on the back end, you're learning the curriculum, you're learning the rubric that they're using to actually grade the grant applications. So I'm getting on those sites and I'm like, okay, let me become a judge and start learning what's the actual rubric. How are you judging me? Because I don't know what you're even looking for. And so once I get on that site and I became a judge on a lot of different grants, now I'm like, oh, I know the rubrics now. And so for my next applications, I'm more so tiering it towards what they were looking for. I'm tiering it towards aligning to what they're asking us to be, right? And now I'm starting to win more consistently because I have the rubric.
So what kind of grant did you get?
So it was a New York State grant. It was a local state grant that I was getting at that time. And that's a good question because there's multiple different types of grants. There's corporate grant opportunities, there's local, state, and there's federal grants. And like you have to understand which grants you're going for to actually know the strategy behind what you're doing and how you're applying to those grant opportunities because each are very different. And the process when it comes to like applying is super duper different.
But so they're all government grants, like because there's there's like nonprofit corporate grants that you can get as well, right?
Right. So nonprofit, that's one type of grant. Corporate grants, that's corporations giving their own money. Corporations are typically going like tax incentives. That's what they're trying to do. They're giving money like fourth quarter to be able to get tax breaks. But then you have state local grants, which is funded by the federal government. The federal government is getting their money from taxpayer dollars, right? So then they're giving it to state local incentives, or they're giving it to different departments. So it's all very different. It's not all government funded.
So, but you specialize in government grants.
I specialize in grants.
Corporate
grants, local grants, state grants, federal grants.
So there's corporate grants,
right?
There's state grants, and there's federal grants.
Those are the main three.
Okay. What about nonprofit? That's not a main one?
There's nonprofit grants, but for me, that's not a main one because those could be looped into corporate grants as well, depending, because you might have McDonald's who has McDonald's Foundation. So it's still throughout the corporation.
Yeah. Okay. I want to go back to this 50,000 because, again, nothing to sneeze at. You're somebody who says, like, I don't have funding. Grants are important, and most people, they should know, but that's money that you do not have to pay back, right? You don't have to pay that back. When you got the 50, walk me through the emotions. How did this feel? What did you do with it?
Yeah, so you get the email, right? And they're like, hey, you've been chosen as the recipient for the 2025 such and such program. And you're like, what? And you have typically like 3 to 7 days to respond back to get whatever paperwork they need from you. And then depending on the program they get, maybe 7 days and the money's in your account. So you wake up, every day you're checking your account. Where's the money? Where's the money? Where's the money? The one day you finally wake up and it's in there, you like, whoa. And this is one thing that I touch on all the time now is like, it really felt like financial freedom. Like that was like my first time feeling true financial freedom because this was not debt-free, non-dilutive capital that was infused into my business.
Break that down for the people, non-dilutive capital.
No equity split. I didn't have to, no strings attached, basically is how that works. So with that type of funding, what I was able to do was, I hired staff in my business. I was able to get more mobile locations, and we expanded from just being in Brooklyn to further into the tri-state area. And it also helped me create a website that was able to track like where my staff was at particular times so that I could get people to book into my algorithm without me having to, take the calls and everything like that. So I was able to expand really, really quickly in that time frame. So I feel like the feeling that it gave me was like, all right, this is my chance, right? This, when they be like, you only got one shot, do not miss your chance to blow. Like that was my opportunity. And I really feel like I took that and never looked back.
Is there a limitation to how many grants you should be applying for at the same time? Do grant writers look at that and say, oh, this person has 10 already, that's outstanding? Like, how does that work?
It depends on it really depends on the funding source, right? So federal will have like you can't apply to a certain department if you're already working over here. So you might have limitations, but this is when strategy comes into play because with corporate grants, right? Corporate grants is really like a free for all. They don't have any real reporting requirements that you have to uphold. You can apply to as many as you want and you can win as many as you want on the corporate side. So let's say you're going for like a 6-figure grant on the federal side, and that's going to take you 6 months to be able to get it funded. But you got these corporate grants that are funded within like 30 to 45 days. So you can be able to go for those really continuously and consistently to win that funding to just operational support until you win the big kahuna for whatever event or programming that you're trying to do. So it's all about the strategy and how you layer in, the grant funding that you're going for.
So the grant that you got, what was the specific grant? It was for like women business owners? Like what was it?
It was called the Back to Black initiative in New York State. And it wasn't specific to women because I think men won that one too. They had like 10 winners.
So it was for Black entrepreneurs?
Yeah, that was.
Okay, so you get the grant, but at what point do you decide to do this full time and not the hair salon?
So COVID hit, and then, in New York, all non-essential workers were shut down. So even though I had won the grant, had built the business, I couldn't operate. And so I had moved down to Tennessee where my mom was staying at the time. And I ended up like working in the salon out there, just trying to kind of make ends meet type of thing. And then I started seeing guys like you guys on the internet talking about financial literacy. And then I seen other people talking about credit and all type of things. I didn't know any of that type of stuff. But what I did know is how to get grant funding. So I started just getting on live because I needed supplemental income. I'm on my Instagram live like, hey, y'all, let's fill out these grant applications and get this money for our businesses. And one thing turned to another. It went from live to Zoom, from Zoom to in person to now, can you do this for us? And I'm like, you know what, I can. So then that's when I went through my certification program, got my actual grant certification, learned all the real technical parts of the grant writing industry. And then that's when I opened up the business, franchised it, and it is what it is today.
So grant certification, what is that?
It's about 1,500 hours of literally like proposal procurement, budget planning, business development. You're learning everything there is to know about the different departments and industries and how the grants work, time frames. That's kind of what
so
the certification is.
You write the grant proposal.
I'm a grant writer, certified grant writer.
That's major.
Certified grant and business owner, founder. Yeah. I got a lot of titles. That ain't the
I wonder when you start, because there is a misconception, right? We don't really see too many people applying for grants, number one. Number two, I wonder why that is, and is there a misconception around grants that our community just kind of can't seem to actually dive into this space?
The main thing I hear is that they think it's only for nonprofits, right? And so a lot of us have for-profit companies and they think that they're already disqualified. But there's grants for for-profit and nonprofit companies. The other thing is that people think it's a lottery ticket, right? They're like, grants are like a lottery. I apply and I don't win. And it's like, how do we educate you on the strategy to grants, right? The formula to actually make grants a consistent part of your business's revenue in order for you to consistently be winning and expanding in your business. So that's pretty much what I think it is just the miseducation or misinformation that's put out about the process to how grants really work.
Is there like a database? Like, if somebody's looking for different type of grants, is there a database, a site that they can go to? Like somebody who is misinformed or has no education, this is a site you should start with to see even if you qualified to receive a grant.
Yeah, so the databases that they have, they're not going to tell you like if you qualify for it. The databases that they have are literally, here's just all of the grants that are currently out on the marketplace. Find which ones you want to apply to, right? So you have sites like grantwatch.com, grants.gov, GrantStation. All those sites have grants on them. But if you don't understand the process to it, once again, now we're going to be getting into that, okay, I found the grant, but now what do I do? So reading is fundamental when it comes to grants, right? And on the grant, there's literally an eligibility requirement, right? That goes and shows you like you have to be US based business, you got to be 18 years or older, you have to have military, whatever it may be. Those qualifications is what showcases like, yes, I'm eligible to apply. But the other thing you have to know too is, are you in alignment with the mission of the grant funder, right? Because the grantor might be like, okay, let's just say this is the research that I do when I'm writing a grant for somebody. I'm like, what projects has this grantor funded in the last 6 months? Because I'm not going to go and pitch to you a plan for an event when right now you're focused on, podcasting, right? So I'm going to go to you and I'm going to make sure that I have the right messaging. Even if I'm eligible, I want to have the right messaging to align with what you're currently looking to fund because I know what you funded in the last 6 months. Now, this used to take me hours to do, but now we're using AI, right? We've created bots, for my team to be able to use to do this deep research in like matters of seconds to say, okay, we got this funder. Who have they funded in the last 6 months? We can see everybody they funded, how much they funded. And then now we're reaching out to those people. Hey, do you mind, sharing some insight on what your proposal was or what you asked for in alignment? Because we want to go in to win. We don't want to go in to just throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. We're trying to actually get the funding. So it's those little tricks and tips of the trade that we're doing to actually make it not a lottery ticket and a strategy.
So if somebody wants to get a grant, what's the steps that they have to go through?
I would say first steps first, right? You got to have a business. If a lot of people, if they're operating as an individual or like a DBA, sole proprietorship, right? Like there's grants out there for that, but you're going to get more grants when you're actually a registered business or a nonprofit. So that's your first step for sure. Once you get to that point, what I do is we create a proposal, right? You create a grant proposal, and this is what you use to create that messaging and alignment to grant funders. Once you have your proposal down, what you want to do is go on those sites I mentioned, GrantWatch, GrantStation, and you want to actually start finding grant opportunities, and then you apply to those grants with your grant proposal. And from there, you want to apply. I tell people apply to 1 grant a day. That's typically the strategy that I have.
1 grant a day.
1
grant a day. Because if you're winning 10% of the ones you apply to and you have 30 out there, every month you should have 3 to 4 grants that you're winning for your business. And a lot of people don't understand that. Like I said before, this could become a revenue stream in their business where they're literally funding their operational costs with grants. So the money that you're making in your business now, you're able to invest and expand and other things that you know, be able to do.
And so those websites, well, just those websites, they have criteria. Like, okay, let's say you go to what's the name of the website again?
There's one called Grant Watch.
So if you go to Grant Watch, right, you could type in, okay, I'm a woman, I live in New York. Like that's how it is, or they just give you a million ones and you just got to
They have filters.
They have filters.
You can filter it out. You can say, you know, I'm for profit, I'm a woman, own business, I live in New York area. And now that site particularly, they have an AI search too. So you can even go on there and say, or prompt it, hey, I'm in the, you know, education sector in New York and I'm trying to create a program for financial literacy. Help me find grants around that topic.
Okay. This is as you're talking, I'm hearing like the game changing mentality here. Most people, when they try to start a business, either they try to raise capital, right? Or they get a loan. This is completely different. Talk about that shift. If we get this right, when we get this right, from having money that doesn't have to be repaid as to opposed to getting a loan. And the second part of it is, what type of businesses are you seeing applying for grants? Are they like mom and pop shops, or do you see like what industry in particular that has been the overwhelming theme when you're doing this?
Yeah. So for your first question, I think the shift that could happen is, I just think, right, most American families have $100,000 in debt. But how many of them have $100,000 in access to capital, right? Just money in the bank or assets, right? Yeah. And so I think just as a community, imagine if we could eliminate a lot of the debt in business and in personal to actually be able to do other things and to be able to expand and come together as a community. I just really feel like that could be revolutionary if we had less debt and more access to actual capital. Right. So when it comes to grants, I'm like, when was the last time that you got a pre-approval letter for a grant in the mail? Right? Mm-hmm. But you always get a pre-approval letter for a credit card in the mail because it's beneficial to the people making money off of it. But they don't ever educate on these other opportunities and how we can start our businesses debt-free and non-dilutive. I'm looking at the story of like with Fawn Weaver, right? With what's going on with her company. And I'm like, imagine if we can actually be on those levels, but get it debt free. So grants to me is definitely the game changer, definitely what can shift to me the whole wealth gap in our community, you know, not single-handedly, mm-hmm. but it's a really big part of it. And then I think when it comes to starting a business, we have to really think on a mass scale. How can we create businesses that are actually touching mass amounts of people? Technology has been one. I know me and you were talking about that earlier. Healthcare has been a really, really big one as well. Mm-hmm. In the mom and pop space, a lot of beauty business owners get a lot of funding as well. Transportation companies get a lot of funding as well. So those are the main ones that I'm seeing like on a smaller scale, and then on a larger scale that are the industries that are really getting the funding from grantors. But anybody can win grants, right? Because it's not only specifically based on industry. There's a lot of qualifying factors that could allow you to win a grant opportunity.
So how much money can somebody typically get in a grant?
Corporate grants can range from, you know, $5,000 to $100,000. State, local grants can range from $10,000 to a couple $100,000. Federal grants can range from, you know, low six figures to multi-million-dollar projects. So,
and what's some of the biggest mistakes that people make in the grant process?
I think the biggest mistake is the budget. Whenever I review grant proposals for people, the budget is like blown out, made up numbers, fictitious. And they have whole departments that are literally going over just the budget to see if it's realistic. So you actually have to know your programming. How much does the equipment cost? How much do people cost? How much is your salary? What is it for? How many hours? Like they want it to be broken down, and the budgets will always be balanced back at zero. So a lot of people don't have like basic accounting skills to be able to like prepare a really good budget. And that's one of the things that get them easily denied is just a blown out budget.
So we got to have everything detailed. Line items got to be there. We're trying to get, if we're doing 30, we're trying to get 3 a month. Take me through this process. We start at 50, we get to 19 million. What are you learning? What is this process like from starting at that point, becoming super efficient at it, almost to mastery point, to where you're at now?
Yeah, I became super obsessed, you know, from teaching it to actually going through the certification program and just seeing on a broad scale, like what this could do and what this could create in just everyday American homes. It really allowed me to be like, okay, what can I do to create almost a guaranteed formula, right? As a grant writer, I can't sit here and say, okay, I can guarantee that you're going to win grant funding, but I want to try to get as close as heavenly possible to knowing that it's going to be a yes. So in the formula, what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis is I'm trying to figure out, which funders are currently funding and what's their budget? How much do they actually have to give to the general public? Okay. Then I'm trying to figure out, like you said, which industries or which particular things are they funding at this current moment in this space? And that's when I'm getting my clients together to say, okay, we're going to focus on this messaging right now because, Trump administration just changed DEI. So now we're shifting. And then I'm trying to also figure out the right perfect budgets and messaging that actually aligns with grantors consistently. And so when you're creating that formula in your business through that one grant proposal that you create, it starts to become a really easy process to consistently apply with like pretty good accuracy.
Mm. Is there a time of year that works? I know you spoke about taxes, and so a lot of corporate, people in corporate, at the end of the year, they're looking for tax incentives, and so they try to donate or they create grants. Or is it like April or March 15th, where it's like this is the deadline for us to file? Is there a specific time of year, or every month is equal?
Fourth quarter for corporate grants. First and second quarter for federal state grants, because new fiscal year budgets is coming out and now they're spending money. So third quarter is still good, but it's a little bit lighter than any other, quarter.
Gotcha.
So yes, there are times.
So you write grants to people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you recommend, what do you think about people that are using artificial intelligence to write the grant?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think AI is an amazing tool. Like we use it mostly for like deep research purposes, because what they're doing right now, as I've seen, like the National Science Foundation, they actually just banned using AI for federal and state level programming. So what they're doing is creating tools. There's a tool like Zero GPT that they're using to say, okay, if you're using AI and it's 80% of your proposal, we're kicking it out at this point, because again, people are coming up with numbers and programming projects that they haven't read through, they don't understand, and they're like, how are we going to be able to determine that this money is going to be used properly if you're just coming up with anything, right? So that's one thing they're doing right now. I think that it could be a good tool for grammar, prompting, ideas, helping you with messaging, helping you connect and align with funders. But I still think that human writing aspect does change the game in terms of being able to connect with the funder and what they're trying to do.
If I use AI to write it, does it come off as fraudulent? Is that a red flag that can follow me throughout that process, right? Like if I'm applying for one corporate grant, they might put me in a database like, hey, this guy used AI to help write his.
No, it's not going to work like that. Yeah, all the departments are separate.
Perfect.
Yeah.
What's a hack that people might not know that can help their chances of getting a grant?
Building relationships. Building relationships is a super duper hack. And I'm talking about literally, you can get involved with your Chamber of Commerce, but also like your local communities, your local state projects that are funding opportunities, building those relationships with the people who are the treasurers, the people who are creating the programming, the program developers. And this is like going on Eventbrite and finding community events, and then looking on LinkedIn and finding, hey, so-and-so has a grant that's out right now. How can I connect to the project manager? How can I connect to the treasurer? How can I connect to, the people who are overseeing this grant opportunity? Get on a call, build relationships, because this is what people don't understand. Just because I have a grant that's front facing right now doesn't mean I don't have other money in the reserves, right? They have full budgets. They might have $1 million that they're giving out for the whole year, but right now they're just offering this $100,000 grant. So now if you start building those relationships, they're like, oh, we saw that you had that program for the kids. We got some opportunities on the back end for that. Stick around, or hey, I'll save your application. That's really how it works, because what they're trying to find too is, you have to remember, especially state, local programs, they're given that money from the federal government. So they have to do a certain, they have to also do right with the money. They have to give it to people and showcase what they've done over the course of the year in order to get funded the next time. So they're looking for reliable relationships that can also help them get funded next year too.
Yeah, one of those things to alleviate debt, especially this time of year, is on an individual basis, is student loans, right? And getting grants obviously helps with that. A lot of kids have just gone back to college. Some kids are starting their senior years in high school. What is the advice for them in the process of trying to get grants, right? Imagine a high school kid trying to figure out how to get money so they don't go into debt. What should they know going into this college applying process?
So I focus on grants for businesses and nonprofits. On the college side of grants, I'm not in tune with what the college side of grants are even doing at this point in time. My expertise is on the business side.
Got you. Okay.
So what's a success story that just comes out to you that one of your clients had as far as, working with you and getting funding for a grant?
I mean, I have a lot that come up to mind. I think one that was probably sticks out the most over the years is this lady from Houston. She has a child care facility. She had one facility and it was 24 hours. And she just was like super passionate when she was talking to me over the call about her messaging. And we ended up getting her a $300,000 grant that Houston was giving out through the state because they wanted more child care facilities. She has 7 locations now and she's killing it. And she's debt free. And she owns 100%. And it's all because she was able to get into that program through Houston. And so it's just the legacy that it creates, the freedom that it creates for her, and just the possibility that it creates in people's mind. And it's the validation that happens that says, like, my business is worth it. My business is worthy. My idea was good enough for somebody to see it and not, want to actually invest and not have to take a part of what I'm doing to say yes.
The location obviously is important in terms of grants. Oh, I'm assuming it's important. You talked about Houston. I know you're doing stuff in the Atlanta region. The municipality obviously plays a role in the grants because how much money the state can. Talk about the location process when you're doing grants.
100%. So, of course, because they're state local grants, where you're registered, where your business is registered matters. This is why, like, on a higher level, when you're really going for grants consistently, you want to create those foreign entities in other states to be able to access that grant funding opportunity. Of course, you got to know like all the implications that come with that, but that becomes a higher level strategy that you can utilize. But major cities are going to have the most grants, right? Major cities are getting the most funding. New York, Georgia, Illinois, like Chicago areas, all those states are getting the most funding because they have the most population. So they have the most taxpayer dollars. So it just makes sense. But, any state, no matter where you're located, you can get grant opportunities because remember, there's still like corporate grants too. So even if your state isn't heavy on giving grants for businesses, you still got corporate grants, and corporate grants is typically US and Canada based.
Is there, obviously New York makes sense. In my mind, Florida makes sense. Texas, California. But then you said, should people actually, like when I'm listening to you talk now, I'm thinking like, let me figure out where some of these corporate headquarters are, because this might be an opportunity for me as well. Should people do deep dives and be really intentional about that type of research?
Where they're building their relationships at?
Right.
100%. 100%. Like I said before, is if you know who's over the funding and who's over the budgets, like it becomes a point where you don't even have to apply for grants. One of my grants, Ash Jubert, she just got connected. She got connected this year with Invest Atlanta, right? And I don't know if you guys know that project, but she got in tune with them, and she was able to win a $10,000 a month grant for the next 12 months, right? So now she has a guaranteed $120,000 coming into her business to be able to help her do all the things that she has to do consistently. And that was based on relationship. That wasn't based on applying to the grant.
So, and like you said earlier, when you talk about funding, a lot of times it's like venture capital. People go after venture capital, or they go after angel investors, or they try to get a loan from the bank. Why do you think that grant funding is not as popular as those other forms of funding?
Because you have to wait. Everybody wants the instant go on the line. Okay, you put your information in and it pops up. You're pre-approved, right? Or 24 hours. You've been approved for X amount of dollars. Grants is not like that, right? Grants is going to be a longer process. From start to finish, you might be looking at 30 to 60 days until funds in the bank account. So when you're looking at, a lot of times business owners hardly have a plan for how they're going to start their business, a business plan months before. I tell people, my clients, you need to be, whatever programming you're looking to do, you need to be going for grants the quarter before. Like, we're not doing this a month before and then we're trying to get the funds and now we're rushing through the processes. We're trying to plan a whole three months in advance, 6 months in advance. So I think the reason why people go for loans is because it's quicker. A lot of times people are in those tight situations because they're failing to plan, where their business is going the next year, next 2 years.
So should the business be operating for a few months before we try to apply for a grant? Like we shouldn't come out the gate applying for the grant?
You can apply immediately for grants.
Okay.
Immediately.
Yeah, because in terms of the numbers, I would think that I need to show some proof that the business is up and running, we're making money, here's where our projections are. But you're saying like I can have those things as estimates, as future guidance of where I'm headed and apply?
But the thing is too, grants isn't based on revenue. So
Okay.
you can also show traction in other ways. Do you have a wait list? Do you have people who are interested in what you're doing? Did you do a beta test to see, this works, right? I could show traction in multiple other ways more than just revenue. So it's important to know, like, even if you're like, okay, I'm ready to start this business, can you 3 months ahead of time, can we open up a email list where we can get 300 subscribers to show that people want what you have to offer? Okay. And now when we're going for the grant, we're using that as the traction instead of having revenue.
It's good to know.
What businesses are most likely to get grant funding?
In terms of industry?
Yeah.
I think it's trendy. It depends on the trends. It depends on the season. Right now, I've been seeing anybody who's focused on and bettering their operational support through tech initiatives have been winning pretty consistently. But any business can do that. So, and I say it like that to say, a lot of times people will set themselves out because they're like, oh, this is a grant for, podcasting. I don't own a podcast. And it's like, well, do you have a message that can be delivered through podcasting that would help generate revenue for your business? Create the messaging for it, right? Create the alignment for it. Don't just go for grants because it's industry based. Go for grants because your business could utilize whatever that grant is giving as a tool to grow.
Have you seen an increase? Obviously, we've been doing this, and you've seen some administration changes, right, from the federal side, obviously from the local side and the state side as well. Have you seen a swing as we saw some programs get closed, more people coming into the space, or has it swayed in a different direction?
Yeah, with Trump's administration being in office, he canceled a lot of grant programs, based on whatever reasons, and then he also killed a lot of the budgets because he was like, we were spending a lot of money on things that he felt were a waste or whatever he felt like it was. Yeah, he was like, you know what? No, we ain't doing that no more. So there has been shifts, but there's still a lot of funding out there. A lot of people were reading the headlines and they're like, there's going to be no more grants. There's millions of dollars of grants still on the table, 100%.
So as far as you, right, your company helps people streamline the process. Like, do you actually file the grant for them?
We do the whole end-to-end process from finding to writing to applying. So basically, we want to take this off your hand because we want you to be able to do this consistently. And if you're not doing grants consistently, it's going to be hard to really win.
And then the compensation, do you get compensated regardless? Do you get a piece of the grant if they get it? How does that work?
Yeah, so as a certified grant writer, it's unethical to do any like percentages. Typically what people will do when they do percentages, they write themselves into the grant as like an employee or something like that. That's seen as unethical. So we take just a flat upfront fee for the process that it takes us to write and research and apply and find. But we have a pretty high percentage rate, so we're pretty confident in what we can do. Of course, we can't guarantee that we're going to win you every single grant, but we have happy clients.
How important? I mean, I'm just imagining how important the storytelling part of the business is, right? If I'm listening or I'm reading a bunch of applicants as a funder, I want to make sure that I have the most compelling, the most endearing story. How much of that do you guys implement inside of the people that you're working with? And again, how important is that to people who are trying to get into this?
I would say that's probably 60% of it is the connection, the story connection, because especially right now with AI being so popular and a lot of people being able to generate, proposals pretty quickly, what's being lost is the authenticity. What's being lost is the story of the founder and the connection. So a lot of funders are wanting to really connect deeply to what's your story? Why did you start this coffee company? How are you using this to propel your community? How are you connected to this in a deeper way? Like, how sustainable will this be long term? Because if you're giving somebody money, the goal is that you see them 3 years from now and they've grown and you can be a part of their whole journey, right? And that's how you get that consistent yearly annual funding from funders, is being able to showcase sustainability. So I think that the storytelling part of it is is really the big piece. It's really the connection. And now, like I was telling you before, they're coming up with, different AI bots and tools to be able to kick different applications out off the rip. They're like, okay, didn't follow the rules, didn't apply on time, don't have this uploaded, used AI, out of here. Okay, now we down to 10% of the applications. So what makes it quicker for them? So the best way to do it is do it right.
If I win a grant, right? Let's say that the grant is for 20,000 for the year. 12 months is up. Am I eligible to apply for that grant again? Like, how often can I apply for the same grant, even if I win?
Yeah, you can. So that would be basically what's called either a rolling grant, which means there's really no deadline. And typically with rolling grants, you can reapply. Now they might not choose you every single month for it, but you can reapply to a rolling grant opportunity. Or if there's a grant, they'll let you know, right? The grant, it'll shift depending on who it is and who it's coming from. But yes, you can reapply to a grant opportunity for sure.
Is there a thing that you can have but so many grants at one time? Like, can you have
Nope.
10 grants running simultaneously?
Yep. You can, but this is what I also tell people is don't get grant happy, right? Because grants are debt free, but they're not tax free. So grants goes on your taxes as additional income. And so you have to be able to uphold the standard of how to utilize that actual grant. So if you're like, okay, cool, Stormy said 1 grant a day, we balling. Now, are you reporting back? Are you, handling the funds how you said you would on the application? It takes a really organized, operation to be able to handle that many grants at a time.
Is there any oversight to see, okay, you asked for a grant because you said you needed a truck. You have to, do they check to see if you actually purchased the truck?
Depends on the funding source. Of course, you should always do what you said you're going to do on a grant opportunity. But federal, state, local grants, yeah, they're going to be checking. Now, if let's just say that you budgeted 30,000 and the truck ended up being 25, you can, talk to them, let them know, hey, we have this overage of 5,000. We're going to reallocate it to these areas.
Is that money taxed is it taxed as additional income, right? If I made 100,000, I got a grant for 100,000, I've made 200.
Correct.
Okay, good to know. Yeah, so that's interesting because I wasn't even thinking about the tax implication. Definitely have a CPA.
Oh yeah,
involved in this.
But see, this is when you're doing it on a high level. This is when the real strategy really comes into play, right?
Okay.
Because now you have a $200,000 business, right, on the for-profit side. So one thing that I always tell my clients is like every for-profit should have a nonprofit foundation, right? Because now we can be able to take 30% of what our for-profit is making and put it over into our for-profit side. And now we're creating that tax-free money that we could, that we got from that grant funding. So it's really important to just, I'm not a CPA, but it's really important to understand the implications of grants. And it's important to be able to have strategy when you're going for grants because you can get in trouble. And I've seen a client, get tax dollars taken back because they didn't do what they were supposed to do with the funding. They didn't report on time. They told them that they were going to do, help 500 people. And at the deadline mark, they helped 50, right? So there are definitely times where they can be like, oh, taking that back.
Are you in a database of grants? So it's like, okay, this person already has 3 open grants, so they might not need the money. Like if somebody else is going to give you a grant, they see how many grants you already have or were given in the past, and that might make the decision like, okay, they might not be in dire need because they already have a grant.
Yeah, the departments are pretty separated, but what they will do is they'll make you, tell them. Yeah, they'll make you say what funding sources have you gotten all year? But sometimes that can also be a help, right? Especially on the nonprofit side of grant opportunities. Nonprofits give their money to people that can showcase they have other ways of funding. Like they don't want to be the only funder on the nonprofit side. They're like, do you have anybody else willing to help? Do you have anything else going on? So they'll make you tell them on the application.
In terms of you from a personal standpoint, Pink Print is the brand.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I guess we should get the origin story of the name and all that. But when you're building this team, do they all have to go through the certification process? Talk to us about how Pink Print was formed and where it stands internally.
Yeah, so absolutely. We all go through the same certification process for sure. But then we also have our internal, methodology that we utilize in our own internal formula. So then, of course, they're trained on what we do that makes us different and our information more proprietary. So it's a couple weeks of training. Typically, they can get it done in 3-4 weeks.
How many people on the team?
17 right now.
17.
17.
Okay.
And those are all reps that work with people individually?
So there's different departments. So you have your grant writing department, you have your grant application specialist department, and then we have just our operations and stuff.
So how have you been able to market your company?
Market it through our Get Grant Ready summits. So our summits are really where a lot of people find us, because at the basis of being a grant writer, I think it started off as education first, right? And that's kind of where we keep it for the most part. It's like, hey, even if you don't hire us, we want you to know that this is possible. We want you to know that you're eligible and how it works. And we want you to go and do it and be excellent, regardless, whether it's us or not. So when we educate people, we do like 3-day, 5-day virtual summits to educate people on literally the full process of like the mindset you need, the where to find grants, how to write the proposal, how to apply to it, and then also how to scale with the tax code, because that's a really important part of it too.
Yeah, how liberating is this process for you? I know a lot of times we run into people and they're like, "You changed my life. You changed my life." I wonder, as you're going through this journey yourself, how has that been when people understand this is something that can really elevate their business, number one, but also from a personal standpoint, help them in their journey when it comes to financial education and debt.
At first, it was really scary because, like, when it comes to money, it's like people really look at you like they lifeline. And at first, I was like, hold on now, hold on now. And as time has
Hold on, say
gone
that
on,
again.
hold on now.
You still from Brooklyn?
But that was Georgia. I
Come
had
on,
to hold
you
on
still
now.
from Brooklyn?
Is it, as I've built my confidence and like really seen that a proof of concept more and more over the years, of course, I've just gotten more comfortable with understanding like we can change people's lives. Like we really do have access, information, and skill set to do that. 13 of you guys as vendors were there because they won pink print grants, working with us. And I was going around, I was like, oh my God, it was like, yeah, the grant that we won, the 15,000 we paid for our booth, we here, we rebranded, yada, yada,
Oh
like
wow.
selling out. You know what I'm saying? So it's like seeing it in real life, like real business owners staying debt free, building their business, expanding, getting these different opportunities because of grant funding, whether they came to a class or whether they work with us for their grant writing. It's surreal. It really is. It's humbling.
That's crazy. We gotta get that number up.
We do.
So 13 people at InvestFest vendors worked with your company. You knew that because you just ran into them, or they have reached out to you beforehand?
Yeah, when I had said I was coming, they were like DMing me like, stop by my booth, stop by my booth. And then I know my clients too. If I'm walking around, I'll be like, oh, what's going on? How are you? How's the grant been going?
Nice. So what is the mindset? You mentioned mindset. What is the mindset that somebody needs to have?
It's the shift. It's the shift in the process, right? Because like we talked about before, loans is quick, credit is quick. I'll say it like this. A lot of people, they'll upload, 50 resumes to different employers in order to be able to get a job that's going to pay them a set amount of hourly wage. But when you tell them that there's grants out there, they're not willing to do the same process. Create a proposal, a resume, find grantors, employers, and submit that grant application or that grant proposal in order to get amount of money that can actually build their legacy. The mindset shift that has to change is genuinely the feeling like you're worthy, what your worth is. Because if you're willing to sit down and apply for $15 an hour, $30 an hour, $50 an hour, why aren't you willing to sit down and apply for 50,000 that could actually keep you debt free and build your business and create your legacy that you saw fit in your own vision? So that's really the shift that needs to happen, is the worth.
We talked about shift. We talked about scalable businesses prior to starting this. I wonder, when you look at it, the businesses that are applying for grants, how many are in the tech space? We talk about growth and we can see where the economy is headed. We see what the market looks like in terms of what is actually moving the market. We know what it is, obviously what we do from an investment standpoint, but we need creators. We need people that are innovating. How many people, or how much do you stress that we're looking for businesses in the technology sector?
As us as a company,
Right.
we don't really stress what industries that we, try to work for. In particular, we more so, help who's in need. But I will say that, like, for instance, Web3, they just won a $5 million grant, a blockchain grant. And I keep telling people that if you're not utilizing artificial intelligence to increase your operations or, creating employees or to decrease the amount of overhead that you have in your company, you're definitely going to be behind. And there's a lot of grants that are out right now for innovation, especially sustainability and environmental innovation, that they're wanting you to get this money. They're wanting you to get these grant funds because they need more businesses that are in that space, 100%.
So what's some of the challenges that you had as far as scaling your business?
Challenges that I had was talent, right? Talent is always a thing. People come to that interview, bright eyed, bushy tail, ready to work. And 2 months in, you're like, hold on, what's going on here? So talent acquisition has always been something because what we do is very technical, and you have to just be excellent at it, period. So that's been something that has always been a struggle with growing our
So
company.
have you used AI? I know you said that you don't really encourage people to use AI to write the
The grant
proposal,
proposal.
but inside of your business, are you using AI?
We do. We've created literal bots for customer service, right? Phones. People always try to call and ask 1,000 questions. So we have, AI that does that. Then we also have AI that we use for, like I said, on the grant writing side, deep research, alignment, understanding funders from different standpoints. That's really how we're using it for the most part. Now I use it. I was just telling Troy, I'm like, I'm ready to write a book. He's like, man, yeah, I can write that book. But so it's we're using it daily.
Yeah, one of the things you said, one of the challenges is having the talent, retaining the talent. I'm sure is an issue when you have it. I want to know, like from a competitive standpoint, I'm sure there's people in your industry who are watching what you're doing and saying, "Oh, we can do that, or we can be better." What gives you that moat, that competitive advantage against people that are doing similar things to what Pink Print does?
I think really is because we have a data driven approach. A lot of times with grant tours, they're not looking at it from a business owner perspective. They're grant writers. I'm also a business owner. So I'm looking at, okay, how do we create, for instance, when we first started Pink Print, what we did with every single client is we created 2 proposals, only 2. And those 2 proposals we will apply to every single grant that we applied to. I was doing an A/B split test. So what I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, if we send B proposal to, these corporate grants and we send A proposal to these corporate grants, which one has the best result? So now we're understanding from a data-driven perspective what messaging works, what type of sentence structure works the best, what type of budget alignment works the best. Like it's really the data-driven approach that we have. And that comes from entrepreneur mindset, not just a grant writer mindset. A grant writer is going to be good for helping you create messaging, helping you follow the rules of the grant opportunity, but you need somebody who's looking at it as a business owner too, because you're running a business and you really do need that data-driven approach. That's what makes us different.
So from a standpoint of InvestFest, how was your experience at InvestFest?
I had a good time. I was there with Miss Business. We was giving out grants on the stage, in the vendors marketplace. That's what my contribution was. I had a great time. I think also, when Miss Business had the I forget what she called it, boardroom, that she did on the university stage. And when I went up there, she gave me 5 minutes to talk about grants. And so many people were like, I didn't even know I could get grants for my for-profit business. And I'm like, man, we got so much work to do. So that's what I left InvestFest for. I was like, I got so much work to do. I gotta make this thing shake.
Yeah, I know you're doing some stuff for us. Talk about the summit. You kind of alluded to it earlier, but this is a way that you network. Talk about what that entails, what people get when they actually come to these summits.
Yeah, so it's the Get Grant Ready Summit, and this is literally to be able to position for-profit and nonprofit business owners with everything that they're going to need in terms of business structure, grant mindset, where to find grants, how to align, create messaging, and how to handle them with the tax code and report properly. These are 5-day summits that we host, sometimes 3 days, and this next one that we're doing is September 22 through the 26th, all virtual. And guess how much we charge for it?
How much?
It's $5.
Five.
$5. And the reason why we've done that, and we've done that consistently for the last 3 years, is because of access. I'm like, I want you to show up, pay the admin fees so that we can, host it on Zoom. But I want you to show up and I want you to actually get the information to be able to grow the business. I want you to actually take this and share this with a family member. I've had mothers come and say, hey, I don't have a business, but I'm gonna give this to my young daughter who wants to start a business, right? This is like the legacy approach that will be able to be created just from hosting these webinars. So I'm like, as long as we can give the information that'll spark a mind, show up. It's not about the making money part on that side. I'm like, we just want y'all in the room.
And it's five. Like how many hours is it per day?
Shoot, depending on how many questions we get, we be in there. Sometimes it go 2-3 hours.
That's incredible. We got five. There's no excuse. I think we were talking about that. There really is an excuse when you talk about the amount of information, the access to the information, the professionals that look like you that are doing it. I wonder as you're paving this pathway, are you seeing more, especially young girls and even men that are like, wait, this is a pathway that I've now inspired, and you're seeing people do it, right? We've seen this in the podcast space, right? There was prior to 2019, how many people were talking about financial education? You look at the landscape now, is different. Are you starting to see that change in your space?
100%. I have people that were talking about credit. They're like, "Oh, I'm about to get into grants," because this, what they'll tell me is like their clients. Let's say they get them a loan or a credit card or something. They use the money on their business, but then it just doesn't make money, right? Everything you put your money into is not going to always generate income. So now their clients are like, "Oh, well, we don't have, we got to pay this money back and we're using our own money to do it." And they're like, "I want to just give people grants because I don't want them to be in that financial hardship." So they're definitely shifting and they're being inspired by like what we're doing with our company and in the lives that we're changing. So it's super monumental. And I'm encouraging them, come do it. Pinkprint is a franchise. You can franchise Pinkprint. You don't even got to do it on your own. We'll get you the formula, the data, everything. We'll set you up right.
So how does that work as far as it being a franchise?
So basically, we do all the fulfillment on the actual writing and on the application side, and we just franchise out, different territories.
So how many franchises do you have?
We don't have any yet.
Okay, you started it.
Correct.
Okay. So what does that take if somebody wants to be a franchise? Like, what's that process?
You got to go through all your disclosures and you see how the business works and you pay what you want to pay. And we kind of go through, for me, initially starting, I want to kind of date my franchisees for a little while because I want to work with people who are genuine about the process and how, grant writing actually works, and not just in terms of what you can make, but the impact that you can have on people's lives. And essentially what I'm looking for, right, is someone who's, of course, business minded, but they're in their community, that they have a reach to the business owners that are around them or are willing to build that and that really want to, touch those people's lives in that way. But yeah.
So the franchise is up next.
Franchise is up. It's ready.
You talked to us about the book potentially, which is going to come.
Absolutely.
I'm interested if when it happens. Are you putting a concise body of work from your entire life experience, or what we've done here now with the Pinkprint in terms of grant writing?
I think it's going to be starting from Pinkprint on forward. Yeah, I think I'll probably touch on entrepreneur experience of why this makes sense to just kind of allude to the purpose into it, but it's not going to be a full body of work. Not yet. I gotta get back on that.
So what's your vision for the company? Like, you're doing the franchise. Like, where do you want to see this go as far as what you're
Acquisition. Yeah, I want to do, so my goal, we're launching the franchise fully Q4. So my full goal is to do 4 franchises this year and kind of grow at that same rate for next year. And then once we get to an evaluation, about 20 million, I'll be ready to sell.
What's the multiple on this space, right? So in order to get that 20 million valuation, how much do we have to actually have in revenue for the year? Is it like a 2x, 3x? 3x.
Yep.
All right. And then you said 19 million we've done. Is there a goal number that you guys have, or is, you know what, we're just going to try to keep doing as much as possible?
Oh yeah, when it comes to funding, we just doing as much as we possibly can. Yeah, I want to Guinness World Record something. We just trying to do as much as we possibly can and still, keep it fun. Like, I'm not trying to be sick over it, but yeah.
Who's the target market of people that work with you?
So we actually like to help small business owners and nonprofits 1 to 3 years. That's who we like because typically they're the ones that don't really get access to the funding as much. So that's kind of our pocket.
Yeah. How, as you just said, that it made me think about how time consuming this is. Is this something that consumes your entire life, or is there a balance that is needed to actually do this? Like you said, if you're applying to the 30 different grants, obviously you have a team, but how time intensive is it to be in this space?
Depending on the grant you're working on, it could take you 60 hours to read through a RFP and find out what's really working, do the research on it, write the grant opportunity, and then actually apply, right? So it can be pretty time consuming. Me personally, I have a very good balance with my life because I really look at what I'm doing as a creative thing. And if I'm constantly just in work mode, it suffocates my creativity. So I like to get outside, take a breather, vibe, chill, and then I'll have like a really consistent week of just like crazy output.
So 60 hours for one?
It can. I mean, it's decreased a lot with AI, but man, some of those RFPs be 60 pages long.
Yeah, that was one of the things when we sat down with Jack Dorsey. I was telling you, he said the first thing that he does is he wakes up and figures out how can I get my time back. And so if you go to 60 hours of using AI, you're getting your time back. That's good to know.
So, okay. So if people want to sign up for the summit, your services, what's the website, Instagram, all that situation? Like how
So
they do
the
that?
website is pinkprintfirm.com.
Pink Print Firm.
And that's the same across all socials.
Pink Print Firm.
Pinkprintfirm.com.
Okay. So what about the summit?
The summit's on pinkprintfirm.com. It's literally the first thing you see as soon as you get on the website.
So all the information is there.
It's there.
5
Everything.
cash. I better stop playing.
5 cash.
5 cash.
People, they get to ask questions?
Yeah, of course. Do people be doing summits where they don't get to ask questions?
Well, if it's a lot of people, sometimes, it's difficult to answer everybody's questions.
We might not be able to answer every single. Our last summit had 1,500 people in that summit.
Wow.
Live.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm talking about it was activated. Like,
So
so
yeah,
the chat going
you
crazy.
can't answer 1,500 questions.
Yeah, the chat's
Yeah.
going
So you
crazy.
just pick and choose, just a random.
Yeah, like we had a chat box, and we're like, we try to pick the questions, of course, that are going to incite more knowledge and more conversation. If you're just asking like those personal, like, where do I start my LLC? Sis, get us on the back
Sis,
end.
the common
DM us.
hit us on the indirect.
Yeah,
1,500 people is a lot. What that just tells you the appetite is there for it.
it goes crazy every time.
Yeah.
It's especially on the for-profit side, because they didn't know how accessible grants were and how it could really, like, your operational costs can be floated from grants.
I got
Just
some
imagine
ideas.
that.
I got some ideas.
It's needed, especially like you said, a lot of businesses struggle because they don't have funding.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're trying to get venture capital, you're trying to get bank, you're trying to use your credit cards, but it's another alternative that you don't have to pay back and somebody's not
100%.
taking equity in your company. So if you can get a grant, then that would be a blessing for most people that actually have some level of boost in their engine as far as, having more running capital available to them.
100%.
And it's important too, right? The more grants that are created, if they're not used, when that budget sheet comes back, that line item gets crossed off.
Exactly.
So we got to have more people in the space that are actually applying for these grants, winning these grants, so they can stay on that budget line, so
That's the
that
truth.
every year after year, more people can actually have access to it.
100%. 100%.
The more you know.
And the more people that are applying, they'll create more programming. You know what I'm saying? So we got to speak up for ourselves.
Yeah, there you have it. Well, appreciate it.
Appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stormi, it's been incredible. Thank you for coming.
Appreciate this.
Do you have a
Thank y'all.
personal Instagram too that you want to say?
Yeah, I am Stormi Banks, Stormi with an I.
I am Stormi Banks.
But I'll be over there chilling.
Everything's earned. Everything is earned. Everything earned.
Pink print, is that Nicki Minaj inspired?
No, a lot of people ask me that, and I should have did a little more research. But I was on a walk with my mom, and I was like, "What about the blueprint for women?" Because that was kind of my thing. Is I was like, I want the women to be able to like have some access, and I was like, "What about pink print?" She was like, "Yeah, do it." And I was just like, "All right, bet." So it's pink print, the blueprint for women in business.
Okay.
I was thinking blueprint, maybe the J influence.
Yeah, all
BK.
that greatness, throw it in together.
Okay, we got to top Brooklyn in there somehow.
For sure. All right, guys. Thank you for rocking with us. I'll see you next week. Peace.
Peace.